"Daddy, let's buy the fat woman." Mountain Man's daughter made him bid. They won the fat girl for $5. "Daddy, let's buy the fat woman." The saloon went silent for half a heartbeat, just long enough for every drunk head in Redemption Falls to turn toward the small voice at the door. 10 minutes earlier, it had been nothing but laughter and smoke and spilled whiskey. Victor Kane loved it that way. The owner of the Redemption Falls saloon stood on the warped planks of his stage, silk vest straining over his gut, gold watch chain winking under the lamplight. Beside him, on a rough wooden crate, stood Lot 7, a woman with a burlap sack over her head, hands tied behind her back, ankles bound so tight her legs shook just to keep her balance. "Gentlemen," Victor shouted over the roar of the crowd, "tonight's blind lot is a young, healthy piece of woman, good hips, strong back, and no one to come looking for her. Number 7, starting bid, $30. The men roared their approval, boots stamping, chairs scraping, coins clinked, glasses slammed. Someone whistled. From under the sack, Magnolia Rose could barely breathe. The burlap scratched her cheeks, the smell of sweat and dust filling her nose. Rope bit into the soft flesh of her wrists. She swayed, fighting the urge to faint. If she went down, they'd drag her back up. They always did. She heard the first bids, loud and careless. 30, 35, 40. Victor chuckled into the smoke. That's better. That's the spirit, boys. Remember, you don't buy a conscience here. You buy whatever you dare to touch. Then, because cruelty always made him money, he lifted the sack with 2 fingers, just enough for the front row to see. Magnolia's vision blurred with tears. The room swam. Rutted floor, yellow lamplight, a wall of male faces leaning forward, eyes gleaming with drink, and something uglier. She knew that look. She'd spent her whole life shrinking under it. The laughter started low, then swelled. "Oh, hell no. She's huge. Put the sack back on, Kane. I was happier when I couldn't see her." Victor dropped the burlap, lips curling. "What's the matter, boys? Afraid of a little extra?" But the bids died. The air shifted from greedy to mocking. $10 if she does the work of 2 men, someone jeered, already turning away. "5, another voice called lazily, but only if you throw in a barrel of whiskey to wash her down. Even those offers were jokes. No one raised a hand in earnest. Victor's smile turned thin. "Gentlemen, she's young, she's sound, and she eats less than most of you. $10 then. Who'll give me 10? Silence. 9, 8. $5, Victor snapped at last, irritation creeping into his tone. $5 or I keep her as my own house wench. Last chance. 5. Any man with the guts to take what's his? Up in the gallery, a card game paused. At the back wall, a piano note died mid-chord. The crowd was already losing interest, and that was when the door opened with a harsh squeal, letting in a slice of harsh mountain light and the smell of pine. A broad shadow filled the frame. Caspian Thorne ducked his head as he stepped inside, shoulders in a worn leather coat dusted with trail dirt, beard thick, eyes the hard, clean blue of glacier melt. Beside him, half hidden in his bulk, stood a little girl with a red braid and bright, curious eyes. Emma. She tugged his hand, staring at the stage. "Daddy, what are they doing to her?" "Nothing you need to see," Caspian muttered, already turning to steer her back out. But Emma planted her boots and pointed at the bound woman on the crate. Even from across the room, she could see the trembling, the way the burlap sack shook with every ragged breath. "Daddy," she whispered, voice rising with urgency, Let's buy the fat woman, please. Nobody wants her. She looks so scared." Victor Kane heard that, and his smile slithered back into place. "Well now," he drawled, spreading his arms, "even the children see she's a bargain. $5. Who'll take her and end this sad little show?" Caspian felt every eye in the saloon swing toward him, sizing him up, waiting to see whether the mountain hermit would let his daughter lead him into a joke. Emma looked up at him, eyes bright, wet with pity and stubbornness. "We can let her go, Daddy. We can take her home and let her be free." Caspian exhaled slowly, jaw tightening. He looked from his daughter's face to the shaking figure on the stage, then back again. His voice cut through the room like an axe through knotty pine. $5, he said. "I'll take her." As every man in the saloon burst into cruel laughter, Magnolia Rose heard it. A voice that didn't drip with disgust, but with decision. "Far away, wherever you're listening from tonight, tell me, what town, what country are you in as you hear this?" Because from that single word, mine, Magnolia's entire world was about to change. The saloon floorboards thudded under Caspian Thorne's boots as he moved toward the stage. Laughter rolled around him, loud, mocking, vicious. Men elbowed each other, shouting insults that burned Magnolia's ears even through the burlap sack. "Mountain fool! He doesn't know what he's buying. $5 for a cow in a dress." Magnolia squeezed her eyes shut, wishing she could disappear into the darkness behind her eyelids. She had grown up on the receiving end of every insult a man could invent, and yet, somehow, this hurt more. This time, she stood on a stage like an object, a spectacle. Victor Kane leaned in close to Caspian as he climbed the steps. "No refund, no returns. You bought her, you keep her." Caspian didn't give him the dignity of a reply. He stepped up beside Magnolia, towering over her, the floorboards creaking under his weight. Emma followed, her small hand clutching his coat, eyes wide with both curiosity and worry. "Daddy," Emma whispered. "She's shaking." Caspian nodded once, jaw flexing. "I see her." He reached for the knot securing the burlap sack. Magnolia flinched, expecting roughness, but his fingers were steady, careful, almost gentle, as he pulled the sack upward. Light hit Magnolia's face for the first time in hours. She blinked, tears streaking down her cheeks, strands of dark hair sticking to her damp skin. She kept her gaze down, ashamed, but Emma gasped softly and touched Magnolia's hand. "You're pretty," the girl said simply. The saloon erupted in laughter at that. "Pretty? Ha! That kid's blind." Magnolia felt every cruel bark like a thorn in her chest. She braced for Caspian to recoil, just like every man ever had. But he didn't. He just looked at her with those storm-blue eyes, steady and unreadable. No disgust, no surprise, no pity, only a long, assessing quiet. "Come," he said at last. He cut the ropes binding her wrists, and for a moment Magnolia was sure she'd collapse. Her knees buckled, but he caught her elbow before she hit the floor. His grip was firm and warm, grounding her when she felt like a ghost. Emma took Magnolia's free hand. "You're safe now, I promise." Magnolia's breath hitched. Safe. She had never heard that word directed at her. Victor Kane shoved the receipt book toward Caspian. "Sign, and take your bargain before I regret selling her this cheap." Caspian signed with a quick, slicing motion of his pen. "She's not a bargain, she's a person." Kane snorted. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, mountain man." Caspian ignored him and guided Magnolia off the stage. The crowd parted, some laughing, some whispering, some staring in confusion. No one had expected this ending, certainly not Magnolia. Once outside, the sunlight made her blink again. Her eyes burned, her throat ached. She kept her head low, afraid to meet Caspian's gaze, terrified of what he might say now that the transaction was done. But he didn't speak, not until they stood beside his horse. Then, quietly, he said, "You're free." Magnolia jerked her head up. What? You're not property, not mine, not anyone's." He nodded toward the open road. "If you want to go, you go. I won't chase you, I won't touch you. $5 bought your chance, not your future." Magnolia stared at him, shaking. She didn't understand. Men did not speak like this. Certainly not men who handed over money for women on a stage. Emma tugged Magnolia's sleeve. "But I want you to come home with us. Only if you want. I don't want you to be alone." Alone. Magnolia swallowed hard. She thought of the home she'd been sold from. Cold, cruel, punishing. She thought of the saloon stage, humiliation drenched in whiskey breath. She thought of the road ahead, where a woman alone was little more than prey. And here, beside her, stood a little girl with hope in her eyes, and a man who did not flinch at the sight of her. I don't have anywhere else," Magnolia whispered. Caspian gave a single nod. "Then ride with us." He lifted her onto the horse, careful not to grip too hard, and placed Emma in front of her. Magnolia held Emma gently, bracing the girl so she wouldn't fall. Emma giggled, leaning back into her chest. Caspian mounted behind them, reins in one hand, the other steady on the saddle horn. As the horse started up the long trail into the mountains, Magnolia dared to look over her shoulder. Caspian was watching the road, but not with the cold detachment she had expected. There was something else flickering beneath his calm, something protective, something patient, something she had never felt directed at her before. Whatever it was, it made her heart thump in her chest. Emma looked up at her and whispered, "I'm glad we bought you." Magnolia closed her eyes, fighting tears. For the first time in her life, she was glad too. The trail leading out of Redemption Falls wound upward through pine and shale, the kind of path only mountain men or desperate souls ever bothered to take. Caspian guided the horse with one hand, keeping a steady pace, never fast enough to startle Magnolia or Emma, never slow enough to leave them exposed near the town. Behind him, the saloon's laughter faded into nothing. The wind carried only the smell of pine resin, river mist, and dust. Magnolia sat stiffly on the saddle. Emma nestled comfortably in front of her. Every sway of the horse made Magnolia aware of her own trembling, though she wasn't sure if it was from exhaustion, fear, or the overwhelming confusion of being treated kindly for the first time in years. Emma twisted around to look up at her. "Are you warm enough?" Magnolia blinked, startled. Yes, thank you." "We can share my shawl," Emma added, already tugging it off her shoulders. "No, sweetheart, you keep it," Magnolia whispered, touched. "You'll get cold." Emma shrugged happily. "Then Daddy will give me his jacket. Daddy's never cold." Up front, Caspian's shoulder shifted as if he'd heard, but he gave no sign except the faint curl of a smile hidden in his beard. The forest thickened around them as they climbed higher. Sunlight filtered through branches, broken into golden fragments that danced across Magnolia's lap. She watched the ground fall away on either side of the narrow trail, rocks clattering down steep ravines whenever the horse kicked a loose stone. She swallowed. Is your home far?" "Couple hours," Caspian said without turning. His voice was low, steady, the kind that soothed even when the words were plain. Cabin sits by the ridge. Good water, good land, hard to reach, harder to bother. Emma chimed in. Nobody comes up except Daddy's friends, and a bear once. But Daddy chased it away. He said the bear was more scared than me, but that's not true. I was way more scared. Caspian grunted softly. Bear wasn't interested in you. It just wanted the huckleberries. Magnolia tried to imagine it, a man standing between his child and a bear. Her own father would have thrown her toward the animal as a distraction. The thought made her stomach twist. Emma leaned back, her head resting lightly against Magnolia's chest. Where did you come from? Do you have sisters? A mama? Did you live in a big house or a little one? Magnolia hesitated. Lies came easily after years of hiding the truth, but Emma deserved something better than the ghosts Magnolia carried. I came from a farm, she said softly. Not far from here. My family didn't care for me much. Emma frowned. Why not? Caspian's shoulders tensed, almost imperceptibly. Magnolia stared at the trail ahead. Sometimes people treat what they don't understand badly. Emma considered this, quiet for the first time. Well, I understand you, she declared at last. You're nice, you're soft, you hug warm. Daddy says soft things are good. They remind you you're alive. Caspian almost choked on air. I do not say that. Yes, you do, Emma insisted. You said it about Mama's bread. Magnolia felt an unexpected laugh rise in her chest, small, breathless, but real. Caspian didn't look back, but she saw the corner of his cheek lift slightly, a tiny surrender. As they climbed higher, the air cooled. Caspian finally shrugged off his coat and handed it back without a word. Magnolia tried to protest, but Emma piped up, See, I told you Daddy would. Wrapped in his heavy leather coat, Magnolia breathed in the faint scent of pine and wood smoke, the scent of someone who worked with earth and wind, not cheap whiskey and ash. It felt like safety, something she hadn't known since childhood. Hours passed. The sky shifted from bright gold to the muted amber of late afternoon. Shadows lengthened across the trail. The forest opened slightly, revealing a distant glimpse of a ridge crowned with sunlight. Emma pointed. We're almost home. Caspian slowed the horse as the trail narrowed into a steep incline. Hold on tight, he warned. Magnolia tightened her arms around Emma, bracing herself. She had never ridden a horse up a mountain before. Her heart hammered with each jolt, each slip of a hoof. She felt her weight shift dangerously, but Caspian steadied the horse with quiet mastery. It'll hold, he said, sensing her panic. Trust the ground. Trust the animal. She nodded, even though he couldn't see it. Minutes later, the trail leveled out onto a plateau, and Magnolia gasped. There, tucked against the tree line, stood a sturdy cabin built from thick logs warmed by the sun. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney. Chickens pecked near a small coop. A stack of firewood rested neatly under a tarp. Nearby, a little creek glimmered like liquid silver in the afternoon light. It wasn't grand, it wasn't lavish, but it felt like home, more than any place Magnolia had ever stepped foot in. Emma scrambled down before the horse had fully stopped. Come on, I'll show you everything. Daddy built the cabin himself, and the chicken coop, and the porch, and I helped with the garden. Caspian dismounted and offered Magnolia his hand. She stared at it for a moment, uncertain. Then she placed her palm in his. Powerful fingers curled around hers, not possessive, not demanding, just steady. You're safe here, he said quietly. Her breath caught. Tears stung her eyes. I don't know how to believe that yet, she whispered. You don't have to, Caspian answered. Not tonight. He helped her down slowly, as though she were something fragile, something precious, something worth not breaking. And for the first time in her life, Magnolia Rose wondered what it might feel like, not just to be saved, but to be wanted. The cabin door creaked open under Caspian's hand, releasing a wave of warm, pine-scented air. The scent of wood smoke, dried herbs, and something faintly sweet, maybe baked apples from earlier, wrapped around Magnolia like an unexpected embrace. For a moment, she stood motionless on the threshold, Emma practically vibrating beside her with excitement, Caspian waiting silently behind her. Magnolia's heart beat too loudly. She hadn't stepped into a home in years. Houses, yes, but homes? Homes were for people who were wanted. Still, Emma tugged her forward. Come in, Maggie. This is your room now. Well, maybe not your room, but you'll have one. Daddy will fix it. Caspian cleared his throat. She'll have her own space, Em. Let her breathe first. Magnolia managed a soft, "Thank you," as she stepped inside. The cabin was small but meticulously kept. A stone hearth glowed steadily, casting golden light over the single large room. To the right was a sturdy wooden table and two mismatched chairs. Hooks on the walls held cast-iron pans, dried herbs, Emma's slingshot, and a neatly folded set of fishing nets. A narrow hallway led to two small bedrooms. Magnolia's fingers brushed the edge of the table, smooth wood, warm, clean. She hadn't touched anything this cared for in years. Caspian hung his coat back on a peg and nodded toward a chair. Sit. Rest. You've had a long day. Magnolia sat slowly, as if afraid the chair might vanish beneath her. Emma hopped onto the other chair, swinging her legs, while Caspian stoked the fire and set a pot back on the stove. You must be hungry, he said. I'll heat some stew. Magnolia swallowed. I can help. No need, Caspian replied without turning. You're a guest. A guest? The word hollowed something in her chest. She had been called many things: burden, disappointment, curse, cow, waste of food, but never guessed. Emma didn't seem to notice Magnolia's struggle. She hopped off the chair and rushed to the hallway. Maggie, come see your room. Caspian opened his mouth to tell her to slow down, but stopped when he saw Magnolia struggling to rise. He stepped forward and offered his hand, not grabbing, not forcing, just offering. She took it. His hand was rough, warm, steady. A man who cut wood, hauled water, mended fences. It steadied the quake inside her. Emma flung the small bedroom door open. Ta-da! Magnolia blinked in surprise. The room was little more than a walk-in closet, but it had a bed, a real bed, with clean quilts, a small window overlooking the trees, a handmade dresser with a single vase of dried lavender on top. Lavender. Someone had gone out of their way to make it smell pleasant. This used to be Mama's sewing room, Emma explained, crawling onto the bed. But she's gone now, so you can have it. I'll put flowers on the windowsill tomorrow. Magnolia sank onto the edge of the bed, trembling. Emma, this is beautiful. Emma grinned proudly. Daddy made the furniture. Magnolia looked over her shoulder. Caspian stood in the doorway, arms crossed, not in defensiveness, but in a posture of someone who didn't know where to put the emotions in his chest. It's small, he said quietly, but it's yours, if you want it. Magnolia touched the quilt, tracing the stitching with her fingertips. I've never had a room of my own. Emma blinked. Never? Never. Magnolia whispered. Something in Caspian's jaw tightened, not anger at her, but for her, for the life she had been forced to endure. He cleared his throat again. Stew's ready. The three of them gathered around the table a few minutes later. The stew was simple. Potatoes, rabbit, carrots, but seasoned well, steaming hot. Magnolia barely took a bite before tears spilled onto her cheeks. Emma panicked. Is it too spicy? Magnolia laughed through her tears. No, it's perfect. It just tastes like care. Caspian's eyes softened, though he said nothing. After dinner, Emma pulled Magnolia to the hearth to show her drawings. A meadow full of flowers, a bear holding a basket of berries, and one that made Magnolia's breath hitch. A stick figure with long hair standing between a small girl and a tall man. Emma pointed proudly. That's you. Magnolia pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Me? Yes, Daddy says families grow however they're meant to, so I drew you in ours. Caspian nearly dropped the log he was putting on the fire. Emma, he muttered, but not sharply, not with annoyance, more like a man walking a line between fear and hope. Magnolia knelt and hugged the girl tightly. This is the most beautiful drawing anyone has ever made of me. Emma hugged back, warm and fierce. Then you have to stay, because I'm not erasing you. As night settled, Magnolia helped Emma wash up, listening to the girl chatter happily about the forest, the creek, the chickens, the stars. Magnolia found herself smiling, genuine smiles she didn't know still existed inside her. When Emma finally slept, Magnolia stepped into the main room. Caspian sat at the table, sharpening a knife, but he paused when she entered. I hope Emma didn't overwhelm you, he said. She made me feel wanted, Magnolia answered quietly. That's more than I've had in my whole life. Silence settled between them, not awkward, not tense, just full, warm. Caspian set the knife down. Magnolia, about earlier, in town, I know what they said. I know how they looked at you. Magnolia stiffened. But their eyes were blind, he finished. Her breath stopped. Caspian leaned back, his voice low and steady. You walked onto that stage carrying 10 lifetimes of hurt, and you were still standing. That's strength, not something any man in that saloon could understand. Magnolia blinked hard, tears threatening again. Why are you being so kind to me? Caspian held her gaze. Because a person who's been thrown away too many times needs someone who won't look away. Magnolia's voice broke. No one has ever looked at me the way you do. Get some rest, Caspian said quietly, standing to stoke the fire again. Tomorrow's a new start, if you want it. She watched him, broad shoulders silhouetted by firelight, calm hands coaxing warmth back into the room, and for the first time in her life, Magnolia Rose felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Hope. Morning crept into the cabin on a ribbon of soft gold, filtering through Magnolia's window and warming her cheek. For the first time in years, she had slept without being jarred awake by shouting, by cold, or by fear. The quilt around her smelled of pine and lavender. The air was thick with the quiet crackle of a fire already lit, and faintly, bread. Someone was baking. For a few slow, disbelieving seconds, Magnolia simply lay there, letting the luxury of safety settle over her bones. Then a knock sounded softly on her door. Maggie? Emma's voice piped up. Daddy says breakfast's ready. But also, there's something weird outside. You should see. Magnolia dressed quickly, still wearing the second-hand dress Caspian had found for her the night before, and stepped into the kitchen. Caspian stood at the stove, sleeves rolled, forearms dusted with flour, flipping biscuits in a cast-iron pan. The sight made Magnolia pause. "You cook?" she whispered. Caspian shrugged. "Well enough." Emma leaned close and whispered loudly, "He burns them when he's sad. These ones aren't burned, so he's happy today." Magnolia's cheeks warmed, but before she could sit, Caspian nodded toward the window. "Emma's right. You should look." Magnolia approached slowly, dread coiling in her stomach. Outside, nailed to a tree at the edge of the clearing, fluttered a sheet of paper, a poster, a wanted poster. Her name stretched across the top in bold black ink. Magnolia Rose, missing daughter, $15 reward. Below that, in cruel handwriting added by her father, were the words, "Runaway, unstable, dangerous if cornered." Magnolia's breath caught, her hand flew to her mouth. He's looking for me." Caspian stepped up beside her, his presence steady as an oak tree. "I figured he might. Put it up sometime before dawn." Magnolia's knees weakened. Every breath trembled. "He found out I'm gone. He's coming. He'll take me back. He always does. I don't know how, but he always finds me." Emma grabbed Magnolia's hand. "No, he won't." But Magnolia shook her head, tears already forming. "Men like him, they don't let go. I'm not worth much, but he hates the idea of losing control over me." Caspian's voice hardened. "He had no right to sell you, no right to track you, no right to touch your life at all." Magnolia backed away from the window. "You don't understand. My father will do anything to get me back. He'll hurt people. He'll lie to the sheriff. He'll say I stole from him or attacked him or—" Caspian turned fully toward her. "Did you?" Magnolia shook her head violently. "No, I never—" "Then you have nothing to fear in this house," Caspian interrupted softly. Magnolia stared at him helpless. "You don't know him." Caspian stepped closer, his voice low, controlled. "I've known men like him, mean men, cowards who hide behind anger because it's the only way they feel big." Magnolia swallowed hard. "He'll come." "Good." Caspian's eyes flashed. "Then he'll learn this mountain doesn't welcome cowards." Magnolia gasped softly. "You can't fight him over me. I'm not worth—" "Don't finish that," Caspian said sharply, stepping closer. "Not in my home, not in front of Emma, not ever." Emma hugged Magnolia tightly. "You're worth $5 billion to me." A small, broken laugh escaped Magnolia, almost against her will. She ruffled Emma's hair gently, but fear still trembled beneath her skin. Later, as Caspian chopped firewood behind the cabin, Magnolia approached him. He paused mid-swing when he saw her expression. "Caspian, may I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone?" He set the axe aside. "If you want." Magnolia twisted her fingers nervously. "My father didn't just sell me. I had a savings box. Coins I'd earned mending clothes in town. I wanted to leave on my own someday. I thought if I worked hard enough, saved long enough, I could buy a room in town. A tiny one, just for me." Caspian's brow lowered. "That's not a crime." "He found the box." Her voice shook. "He beat me. He said I stole from him, that every dollar I earned was his by right. He smashed the box, took every coin, said I was greedy, ungrateful, said no man would ever want me, so the only thing I could be was obedient." Caspian's jaw flexed with barely contained fury. He said selling me was the only way to teach me my place." Magnolia bowed her head. "So when he sees I'm gone, he won't say I was kidnapped. He won't say he sold me. He'll say I'm unstable, dangerous, a liar, and the sheriff listens to him. Caspian stepped forward slowly. Look at me. Magnolia forced her eyes up. No sheriff in this state will drag you off this mountain, he said. Not while I breathe. Her lips trembled. Why? Why would you risk anything for me? Caspian breathed deeply, choosing his words with the care of a man who rarely spoke his truth aloud. Because no one should walk through life thinking they belong to anyone but themselves. And because Emma sees you, and because I see you too. Magnolia froze. Caspian picked up the axe again, setting another log on the chopping stump. He'll come. Men like him always do. But he won't find the same woman he threw away, and he sure as hell won't find the same man he expects to frighten. Magnolia wiped her eyes. Caspian? He cut clean through the log with a single strike. Then another, and another. Strength restrained until needed, gentleness given freely, protection without chains. Magnolia watched him, and for the first time, the fear inside her loosened its grip. But deep in the pines, unseen by them both, a twig snapped. Footsteps crept closer. A shadow ducked behind a tree. Magnolia's past wasn't as far away as they hoped. The evening settled over the mountain slowly, the sky cooling into shades of lavender and rose. Smoke curled from the cabin chimney, soft and thin, like a ribbon carrying warmth into the darkening world. Inside, Magnolia read aloud to Emma from a worn storybook while Caspian sharpened a hunting knife at the table. The sound was steady, rhythmic, harmless, until suddenly it wasn't. A horse snorted outside, then another. Magnolia froze mid-sentence. Emma looked up, confused. Caspian's hand stilled over the blade. 3 slow, deliberate footsteps approached the porch. Caspian rose, every muscle tightening with instinct. Emma, behind me. Maggie, don't go near the window. But Magnolia already knew. The air shifted. Her skin prickled. The dread was unmistakable, familiar like an old scar touched by cold air. He found me. The knock came. 3 hard, arrogant pounds that shook the wood. Open up, a man's voice barked. Sheriff's business. Magnolia's breath hitched. Sheriff? No, not the sheriff. Her father. Before Magnolia could speak, Caspian stepped in front of both her and Emma. His shoulders squared, blocking the door completely. He opened it. Garrett rose, stood on the porch, hat tipped back, arrogance dripping from every inch of him. Behind him was Sheriff Alden, thin, gray-bearded, eyes avoiding Magnolia's like he already knew he was on the wrong side of the law. And beside them, Marcus, her brother, arms folded, smirking. Well, well, Garrett sneered. There she is. Thought you could run from your own kin? Caspian didn't budge. She didn't run. She was sold. We both know it. Garrett barked a laugh. Sold? To you? Son, she's unstable, a danger to herself. I'm here to take back what's mine. Magnolia flinched. Emma grabbed her hand. Caspian's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. She's not yours. She's not livestock. And she isn't going anywhere. Garrett shoved his way closer, but Caspian didn't move. The 2 men were inches apart, heat rolling off them in waves. Sheriff Alden cleared his throat. Now, Caspian, law says family has claim in situations like— No, Caspian snapped. Law says she has the right to speak for herself. Let her talk. Garrett snorted. Speak? She'll lie. She always lies. Caspian's eyes flicked to Magnolia. Maggie, tell them. But before she could, Marcus cut in, holding up a dented metal box. Her metal box. The one she'd saved her coins in years ago. He rattled it smugly. See this? He mocked. Found it under her chwang. Stolen money. Sheriff says that's proof she's a thief. Magnolia felt her lungs collapse. That's my money. Mine. I earned it mending clothes. Garrett cut her off sharply. She's unhinged. She'll say anything. Sheriff, take her. Sheriff Alden stepped forward reluctantly, hand resting on his revolver. Miss Magnolia, please don't make this difficult. Emma screamed, No, she's Maggie. She's good. You're lying. Caspian moved like a storm breaking loose. He stepped fully between Magnolia and the sheriff. You can try to take her, he growled, but you won't walk away. Garrett's face twisted. You threatening me, mountain trash? No, Caspian said softly. I'm telling you truth. Sheriff Alden stiffened. Caspian, don't force this. You're outnumbered. Caspian glanced at the sheriff's trembling hand, at Marcus's shifting feet, at Garrett's bluster. You're only 3, he said calmly. Garrett lunged. But Caspian was faster. He grabbed Garrett by the coat front, slammed him hard against the porch post. Wood cracked. Garrett gasped. Wind knocked from his lungs. Marcus charged, pulling a knife. Magnolia screamed, Caspian! Caspian turned, blocking the strike with his forearm. The blade sliced his skin but didn't slow him. He twisted Marcus's wrist until the knife dropped, then shoved him backward into the dirt. Sheriff Alden fumbled for his revolver, but Emma stepped in front of Magnolia, arms spread wide, eyes blazing. You can't take her, she cried. She's my Maggie. Alden froze. Something in that small, fierce voice broke him. His hand lowered. Caspian, breathing hard, hauled Garrett upright. Listen carefully, he growled. She's staying. She's free, and she will never see your face again. Garrett spat at Magnolia's feet. Ungrateful sow, you'll regret this. But he flinched when Caspian stepped toward him. You cross this line again, Caspian said, pointing to the edge of the porch, and I bury the reminder myself. Sheriff Alden finally spoke, voice small. Let's go. He grabbed Marcus by the collar. Garrett stumbled after him, still wheezing, still glaring. They mounted their horses and rode off into the dark, fading into silhouettes. Silence filled the clearing. Magnolia sank to her knees, shaking. Emma threw her arms around her neck. Caspian dropped beside them both, pulling them into his chest. It's over, he whispered. But Magnolia felt the truth settle in her heart. It was only the beginning. The cabin stayed silent long after the horses vanished into the trees. Darkness settled completely, pressing close to the windows, but inside the fire glowed steady and warm. Magnolia sat wrapped in a wool blanket on the edge of the bed in the main room, fingers trembling with the storm of everything that had just happened. Emma lay curled against her side, already drifting toward sleep. Fear exhausted children quickly. Magnolia brushed a hand gently through the girl's red curls, her heart aching with love so sudden it felt like a wound. Caspian watched them from across the room. His arm was bandaged where Marcus's knife had cut him, but he didn't seem to feel it. He stood leaning against the doorframe, firelight painting shadows across his face, shadows that softened when he looked at Magnolia. You're safe, he said quietly. It was the same thing he had told her the night he brought her home. But now, after everything, the words hit deeper. Magnolia swallowed. You could have been killed. Caspian shook his head. Not tonight. And if they come back, they'll think twice. And even if they don't, he crossed the room slowly, kneeling in front of her. I'll stand between you and every monster from your past until my last breath. Magnolia closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "I don't deserve that." Caspian reached up, thumb brushing the tear away. "Stop saying that." Her breath quivered. "I don't know how." "Then let us show you," Caspian murmured, glancing at Emma sleeping against her. "One day at a time." Magnolia looked down at Emma. The little girl's small hand was still gripping her sleeve, even in sleep, as if trusting Magnolia with everything she was. Magnolia whispered, "I've never belonged anywhere." "You do now," Caspian said. "Or at least you can if you want to." The fire crackled. Outside, the pines swayed in the wind like low voices humming in the dark. Magnolia lifted her gaze to meet his. "Caspian, is this really my home?" He leaned closer, voice lowering to a gentle murmur that wrapped around her like a blanket. "It's your home now if you'll have it." Magnolia's breath hitched. Her heart opened slowly, like frost melting on a window. She imagined mornings filled with Emma's laughter, evenings by the fire, days working in the garden, nights listening to the wind move through the trees. She imagined being wanted, belonging, loved. But she also imagined Garrett's eyes burning with hatred as he rode away, the promise of trouble hanging in the air like distant thunder. She whispered, "What if the world out there doesn't let us be happy?" Caspian looked toward the door, as if daring the dark world beyond it to try. Then he looked back at her. "Let the world come," he said. "We'll face it together." Magnolia pressed her forehead to his, letting the warmth of him steady the fear still trembling in her chest. Emma shifted softly in her sleep, whispering, "Maggie, don't go." "I'm not going anywhere," Magnolia whispered. And whether it was a promise or a prayer, she wasn't sure. But for the first time in her life, she wanted to stay. Stories like this remind us how many lives begin again in the quietest moments, when someone finally says, "You're safe now," and means it. Magnolia found a home where she expected humiliation and a family where she expected nothing at all. Somewhere out there, someone listening tonight might need to hear the same truth. You deserve gentleness, even if the world once convinced you otherwise. If this story reached you, tell me, where are you listening from? And if you still believe love can grow in the unlikeliest places, stay close. The next story is already waiting for you.